As part of the World Bank Group, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency is a crucial arm which is focusing on boosting foreign direct investment by offering credit enhancement and credit ratings. And the work of this wing of the World Bank has in fact picked up pace recently in India. And to discuss this further with me is the MIGA Executive Vice President, Mr. Hiroshi Matano. Mr. Matano, thank you so much for speaking to us here on NDTV.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right. So my first question, sir, as a World Bank representative, this is your first visit to India. So what is on the agenda?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be back. This is my first time with the World Bank Group to come to India, but it has been an amazing kind of experience. So I want to thank all the people, the governments, the private sector, and the colleagues here for hosting me. But this time, it's really to promote our new platform. So the World Bank Group, under the leadership of Ajay Banga, we started the World Bank Group Guarantee Platform. So MIGA is an entity that does guarantees, but there's also guarantee sections within the other parts of the World Bank Group. So we thought it was more effective and to bring it all together. So this is my first visit after the start of this platform to promote our new kind of service to the world. And we see that India is a big part of our story. We think there's a lot of potential of using our products. So that's the reason I came here.
All right. So, if you could just explain and elaborate a little bit more in detail of what MIGA does and what is this one-stop guarantee platform? How does it actually help in boosting FDI into countries?
So I think it will be easier to explain examples. So in the past 6 months, we did 2 transactions in India. One is with the Freight Corridor project. So we helped the company to raise, through our guarantee program, to raise about $100 million US. That helps them to expand their business. The other project we did is with SBI. They refinanced part of the World Bank Group loan with ours. So basically what we're trying to do is use our guarantees to invite more investment into India. There's a huge investment need, especially in infrastructure, to satisfy within this country. And with our new products, we think that we can bring more in. And eventually, the India companies go to the international global market to raise financing. We're helping them the first step. Right. So we're quite excited about what we see so far.
Right. As you were mentioning, sir, that these 2 projects have been cleared or signed at least in the last 6 months.
Yes.
Do you feel that the fact that you have launched this new guarantee platform, that's the reason why that the work in India has accelerated in a way?
I think so. It has been, so the World Bank Group has been here for a very long time. We have a large portfolio, but MIGA is something new that we think we can bring to the table. I think we're at the right timing and the right way to invite more investment into India. So we see a strong pipeline going forward, and we're quite excited.
What are some of the potential sectors where you feel, that MIGA can be involved in India?
I can't go into details, obviously, but energy sector is a big part. We think that the green transition that the Prime Minister Modi is trying to achieve, it will be a big part of our story. So energy transition, energy is there. Water is another theme that I think we want to help. So yesterday I had a good discussion with the World Bank Group team to understand where the places that we can use our guarantee platform. So with all the new guarantee products we have, I think we can find a solution tailor-made for this country.
All right. Sir, as you are here as a World Bank representative to India, I'm sure you're looking forward to meeting certain government officials in terms of the focus areas that MIGA would want to work on. So who all are you planning to meet while you're staying here?
Well, obviously, the World Bank Group has very close contact with the Minister of Finance. So later today, I look forward to having a discussion. I want to explain our plan and how we can work together in promoting our products. But also, I think it's an important part is to understand the need of your country. So we want to be effective and to be very smart in using our products. So this interaction with junior government, I think, is a critical part of my mission to this country.
All right. So, in terms of, India has, of course, grown significantly over the past several years. In terms of, India's role in the global south and how we are in fact seeing that there's of course a lot of focus on enhancing, on improving on our infrastructure. In terms of the credit rating that you see, how do you think over the past 10 years or decade or so, how do you think India's role has in fact grown in the global south, and how do you rate it going forward?
No, I had the privilege of following India for a very long time. I've been in the private sector before joining the World Bank Group. I had a chance to come to this country over the years, but I'm really amazed how this country has transformed itself. Going to Washington, what I found is the strong presence that the Indian government has within the dialogue within Washington, D.C. They are a very strong presence. I just want to mention that. So I really have the privilege of understanding how the world is changing in front of us. And I'm quite sure that your country will have a big part of that in making that story. So again, I'm looking forward to having those kind of discussions with your government in the coming days.
Right, and basis the developments that we've seen in the global south recently,
Yes.
what kind of a role or a potential role do you think India can play?
I hope that I had a discussion today about deploying more energy projects in Africa. I think India has a very unique kind of experience over the years that it's developed and solved. And if India can share that knowledge with our counterparts in the African countries, I think that will be a huge contribution. And I understand that that's the aim of Prime Minister Modi's initiative. So the World Bank was happy to work with the Indian government to promote more and ultimately reduce poverty on the continent.
Okay. With respect to India's, and of course you're going to meet a few government officials today as well, ministers as well. What is the biggest focus point for MIGA or the biggest challenge in this region?
One thing is really what I see is that there's a huge need for infrastructure, as we discussed. So MIGA can help in inviting investment into this country. But as you just mentioned, India is becoming a really important partner, development partner for us. So helping India invest into Africa or the other parts of the world is also important. So it's inbound investment, but also outbound investment. And I think the World Bank Group can help the Indian companies to do both. So it's interesting discussion I'm going to have over the years, over the days.
Okay. One question that I wanted to ask, sir, is that India, of course, is aiming to become the third largest economy in the world very soon. How does, what kind of a role can MIGA play, and especially in encouraging FDIs into lesser developed parts of the country?
Yes, I'm sure that India will become the number 3 economy in the world in short order. And we want to help that acceleration of that process. But at the same time, it does face its challenges, especially in the poorer parts of the country. So the World Bank Group does have unique knowledge of helping those kind of issues. So the knowledge that we have accumulated over the years, I think will be helpful. But at the same time, the financing kind of tools that we have through the guarantee product, or IFC has investments. So I think those two combined together, we can address the challenges that the Indian government has. So in a lot of ways, we do have a strong partnership, and we want to continue doing that.
Okay. So in terms of encouraging small and medium-sized enterprises, that could also be a challenge in terms of getting foreign investment for that. Is that something which is in the pipeline in terms of what MIGA is looking at in terms of the projects?
Yes, a big agenda that Ajay Banga has is really creating jobs. That's not only in India, but across the world. There's a lot of younger people. We do need to find jobs for them. So that's a big agenda we think is important. It's not easy, but with all the products that we have and all the knowledge we have, we can address that job creation issue, which is so critical for developing countries. So that's something also I look forward to discussing with your government and private sector.
So now that you have mentioned jobs, I mean, I will have to say it's a little off topic, but still relevant because you're talking about it. We are, the Indian government in its recent budget said that they are going to launch an internship program, which in a way will be our way of tackling the jobs challenge. What is your view on that?
Well, it's really an initiative. I don't talk about internal domestic kind of matters, but we probably need to think about various ways to create jobs. And it's not an easy topic, but with all the experience we have collectively, I think we can find a solution.
Okay. So over the years, the fact that MIGA has been developed as a very, very crucial arm of the World Bank. How has leveraging for the World Bank become very important besides development lending in countries?
Well, I think the general concept that we have is that there's so much need for financing, not only infrastructure, but for medical needs, for educations. So when you combine all this together, it's just a huge amount of money necessary. The public sector, including the World Bank Group, will try to address that, but it's not enough. So how do we bring in the private sector to development is the huge the challenge that we have. Ajay Banga came into office about a year ago, and one of the first things that he talked about is how do we bring in the private sector into development. I think the guarantee program we have is one of the tools to invite the private sector. So later today I'll have a discussion with some of the major Indian companies, but we want to invite them to work with us for the good. So we do have the knowledge, but we want to give them enough incentive to join our endeavor. So I'm quite interested about that discussion that will happen later today.
Right. So in terms of, because we are looking at primarily in terms of how there can be more funding for infrastructure projects in the country, how is MIGA in any way, if at all it's in the plans to promote more women entrepreneurs? I
think that's very important. One of the themes that we'll be discussing later this year in Washington is about gender. So recently the World Bank Group announced its gender strategy. We want to promote that. But a big part of it is to help companies that are led by female entrepreneurs. We think that is an important theme globally, and we'll try to do our best. But our kind of guarantee programs will be tailored to help them if there is a need.
Right. So since we are on the topic of foreign investments, another thing that I would want to point out which had happened in the budget recently is that there's also a tax rate cut which had been offered to foreign companies. Do you think that's a step in the right direction in terms of boosting FDI, especially in infrastructure projects in the country?
No, again, I really can't speak about domestic matters. But again, we just need to figure out the right infrastructure for the private sector to do more investment. And I hope that will be one of the tools that make that happen.
So as you were saying that, making sure that the projects in India are environmentally sustainable and socially responsible is also going to be one of the focus areas for MIGA. So what are some of the steps or measures, checks and balances being taken to ensure that?
For the World Bank Group, having a strong environmental standard, doing the right thing is critically important. We think that that's the part of the knowledge that we bring to projects. And we'll make sure that all the projects that we do in this country, but not only this country, globally, that follow a certain kind of standard. That will include environmental considerations, climate considerations, and what we call integrity. So all these kind of checkpoints, I think, is important when we make an investment. But it is the know-how itself. And what I see, the private sector is becoming more serious about following these standards. And the World Bank Group does have a unique knowledge that we want to share. So a big part of our kind of endeavor is not only providing financial help, but it's also sharing the knowledge that we have accumulated over the years. So I think it's a unique, another point that we can communicate with the private sector.
So if you could also tell us a little briefly about the two projects that MIGA has recently cleared in the country, and what kind of an impact are you looking at, and maybe that will set the tone for future projects also that MIGA would be making.
Yes, the first project, as I mentioned, is the Freight Corridor project that the government has been pursuing for the past 20 years or so. It started with the World Bank Group and also JICA, the Japanese agency. I had the privilege of meeting the company yesterday, but most of it's already complete, but still they plan to expand it further. But at the same time, the World Bank and JICA has already invested a lot of money into these projects. So the financial needs is becoming more larger, and that's where MIGA can help bring in the private sector. And I think that combination of the public sector money starting the project, but as it expands, bringing in the private sector is a good combination that we want to replicate in other kind of areas also. The second project we did was State Bank of India is their rooftop solar project. The World Bank Group had been engaged in doing this, but again, the World Bank Group can do so much. So the private sector is also important. So we provide guarantees to refinance part of it. So this is also a reciprocal project, we believe. So it's really pursuing scale. It's not, we want to do in a large, more deals at a scale that makes an impact. So we're looking to various projects that we can work together.
Okay. So that would, in a way, bring me to the last question that we're looking at, that, we are looking at a stage in the country where we have the third term by the same government. Given that situation, given that kind of environment that we have, what kind of projects, or is this the time for India to actually accelerate in terms of growth? And in that sense, what kind of projects do you see MIGA playing a role in, or the World Bank playing a role in going forward to actually help boost India's growth going from here?
No, I think it's two ways. One is really the infrastructure, the logistics, the energy, the water, all these, there's a huge need, so that's a big part. But also, I hope that India can become an export giant also, and helping other countries, with their development. So your country is really at a critical conjunction, in my view, that can be a really prominent third largest economy in the world. So if we can help you in achieving that goal, we will be more than happy.
All right. We are aiming to do that by 2047. There's a roadmap for that. But thank you so much for your time, Mr. Matano. Thank you for speaking to NDTV. Thanks.